everyone. I am so excited to bring you a day 9 bonus video. So with this video specifically, we are looking at a sample application pack. So this is obviously not all inclusive. And as you start to work on your applications, you may find that you have a little bit less or a little bit more. But this is just looking at some of the basic things that will likely be included that you'll need to submit with your application. Let's go ahead and dive into the video. So sample study abroad application packet. So I just wanted to kind of lay out the expectations of what might be included. This is not all inclusive, and this really is just a sample because every application is going to look different, but you just want to get sort of prepared for what you might expect. And a lot of it is sort of leading on from what we've been talking about in the past days. So you have the application, obviously, so that's going to be a must for each one that you want to do. You have the personal statement or the letter of motivation or whatever that's going to be. So basically the essay portion. Not every single study abroad application requires that, but you're going to find more times than not that it does. And so as I have said, if you have not heard about it, I am offering free 30-minute coaching spots for students. And so if you just go to the link that is below in the description box, you'll be able to find, so if you just go to the description box, you're going to find a link to my Calendly. And so there I'm offering free coaching spots for 30 minutes only, where we just kind of walk through your essay. So maybe you are a student who has just started with your essay and you would like to, sort of get some feedback on that. Or you are someone who is a little bit further along and you're on your third draft, but you just want someone to sort of look over it again. I would be happy to spend some time doing that. I love doing essays. I was one of those students in school that got really crazy and excited about the essays, and I have been editing essays since I was very, very young for all of my peers and getting great results. So I would love to spend some time with you doing that. So definitely take me up on that offer below. It's entirely free. So your personal statement or your letter of motivation is going to have to be included. Transcripts is another one that a lot of students don't think about. If you've done a lot of different programs, I know I was someone who had done that, who'd done like a lot of internship programs and sort of like summer programs where I had gotten some type of credit. I need to gather all of those transcripts, right? Particularly for my graduate degrees. And so you will want to just make sure that you are giving people enough time to be able to do that. Because a lot of times transcripts, even though you can request them online or through an online portal, it still actually takes a person most times to be able to print those out, verify them, because that's another thing. Sometimes you need to have verified transcripts. Other times you don't need to have the verified transcript. So you'll need to figure out what that's going to look like. If it's verified or certified or an official transcript, as we call them here in the U.S., then that means that that is a transcript that will have to be sent directly from the school to the other institution or to the program. And so with that tends to take a little bit longer, because even though it's something that maybe you are going from undergrad to graduate school and it's something that you did 3 years ago, there still usually has to be a chain of command and signing off on that to get it certified, to verify, yeah, this is the person requesting it, blah, blah, blah. And so that takes a little bit more time, whereas with unverified or unofficial transcript, it is one that is sent directly to the student, so just sent through the mail or sent online, typically still through the hard mail, because they don't like sharing that information online unless it's password protected. But with that, it's just something that's sent to you, and then you can send it to the study abroad program. So you'll just want to figure out, again, on the application, are they asking for the official transcript? Are they asking for the unofficial? What does that mean to you? And what is that timeline for you requesting that? Letters of references, letters of recommendations and references. We have talked a little bit about that and how important that is to make sure that you're giving people time enough to write that for you. But in a lot of cases for a study abroad, that's going to be required. Financial clearance forms. This is something that we have not talked about yet. So this tends to come along a little bit later in the process. Usually it's related to the visa, but sometimes it is not. Sometimes it's related to the application. So this is basically, it's not a financial verification form where it's like asking like, how much, do you really have in your bank account? But it is sort of asking how you're going to pay for this. So there are some study abroad programs that want like a clear-cut picture of how you're paying for it. Maybe they don't provide any scholarships, and so they want to get an idea of everyone applying, how are you expecting to pay for it? And they will be very specific about what you need to apply. I always like to think of it in the context of the visa, because if you don't know, for most visas, to get approved for a visa, you have to show proof of some type of income or proof of actual money. So it could look like, for example, I know for my programs, I just had to show that my parents had actually, or my family had actually put in. So I know for me, for my graduate programs, I had. So in terms of the visa, I always like to think of this for the visa specifically, because when it comes to visas, they will typically ask you to show either some type of proof of income or proof of a bank statement or something that shows that you have the money to support yourself. This is particularly true for students who are, studying abroad where your country doesn't necessarily have any type of agreement with the country that you're going to. So I like to think of American students as a great example of that. Is even though we, are the world superpower, we don't necessarily have the interconnections academically that a lot of places do. So for example, even though the UK is not in the EU anymore, a lot of EU students are still eligible for a lot of benefits within the UK, particularly if they're at the student level and they're doing different things through their university. American students do not necessarily have that. And so we always have to show that we can afford to be in the country and that we can afford to support ourselves. You're usually not eligible for any type of public benefits. And that is pretty much the same in most countries that you go to, not just for American students, but for most students. If you're foreign students, there may not be a lot of things that you may be eligible for outside of, let's say, healthcare, if you're going to a place where they offer free or low-cost healthcare. So you want to just keep that in mind. But financial clearance forms, it may not come up until you get to your visa, but at some point you're going to have to show that you have some type of funding to support yourself. So just keep that in mind, even if you're not having to look at it right now. Identification and passport, again, this sometimes does not come up until you get to the visa stage, but sometimes for your application you have to submit either, a driver's license or your passport in full, just so that they can sort of match up and have that information on hand. Health clearance forms, this is very, standard. You probably had to do something like this in college, but this is basically looking at your health forms. For some places that you may be trying to study abroad, they may want to see just that you've had a recent physical, just to see, kind of make sure everything is going well. Obviously, it goes without saying that if you're watching this after 2020, and I know you are because I made this in 2022, that a lot of programs may want to see what your vaccination record is, including for COVID-19. And so you'll just want to keep that in mind. A lot of times that does not come until you've been accepted, but for some programs, they may ask for it up front. So you'll just want to keep that in mind as well. Test scores, I was just touching on that before in the previous page where for a lot of places here in the U.S., you're going to run into the standardized test. And I know that can be something that is very, very foreign for a lot of students who are like, what is this? For some of you, you may have had some run-ins with standardized tests. I know that there are some in places like the U.K., but there's not as much, sort of everyday kind of commons to that. Whereas for us in the U.S., we've been doing standardized tests since we were little kids, and it's something that we just expect to have to do to get into college or university. And so you'll just want to keep that in mind of what that actually looks like, because of course that is its own process that we're not really going to cover that much in detail in this particular series, but that I would love to dive into in the future, of things like the SAT, the GRE, GMAT, MCAT, LSAT. As I have said before, we as Americans, we love our acronyms, and so you'll just have to get used to that and figure out which one is going to work best for you. But test scores could be a huge part of your application if you're planning to study abroad in a place like here in the U.S., where that's pretty common and that you will need to submit that with your application. So I know that it can feel a little bit or a lot bit overwhelming as you start to think about all that's going to need to be included with your application. As we talked about, from the beginning, since day one of this series, that study abroad is definitely a multi-step process. And so you're going to have to just think about how you can best get organized for that, because particularly if you are applying to, let's say, 3 or 4 programs, you have to have those particular elements for each one, and it can start to feel a little bit overwhelming. So I have something that can help you with that. So if you have not had a chance to download my organizational tracker worksheet, just click into the description box to do that. So with this, it is really simple. It is a Google/Excel sheet, and you'll just want to make a copy for yourself. And what you'll do is you will just use it, open it, go ahead and put in the programs. And what I like to say is you want to go ahead and link it just so that you can easily get back to the program. So go ahead and link the URL to wherever the program is, and then you'll just go through it and fill out each spot. So link the program, and then where is the location of the program, what is the date that you're going to be applying, what is the due date of the application, then starting to move into, do you need references, do you need transcripts, do you need an essay, and then also too, there is a spot for you to specifically put, if you're going to need letters of recommendation, who are those people, should you go ahead and reach out to them, you can put all that information. And then as you move along in the process and you start hearing back from programs, you can put the decision in there. So did you get accepted? Did you decide to go with that one? The great thing about this too is that you can use it over and over again. So if you are planning to study abroad again in the future, maybe for a different degree program, or even if you are, let's say, going to grad school, this is something that you can use in the future. I've had students that I work with use this for different things, even when they move into their career path, because it just helps them to keep track of things. It helps them to simplify everything in one spot. So I'm so excited to share this with you. It is, like everything else in this series, free to download. And so go ahead, click into the description box, access that, and get started with it. I will see you tomorrow for day 10.